Hi guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel, My Foreignoy Husband.
Ayaw mo, tanan dihat, amping kanonay.
God bless you all.
Maayong adlaw sadanan. Shout out kang Amanda Page, Helen Oriati, Jessica Magallanes, Hilarion TV Vlog, Escol Jenny, Chong Gala, Burnaby Balili, Bongbong Tayamin, Heart and Kisses Channel, Marie Chris Bagnall, Core 48 Aris, Norabel Losada, Let Giliedo, Melody Marmetto, and Lovelyn Hollyann. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget, make sure you subscribe and like, and thanks very much. God bless you all. Hi and good evening everyone. Welcome to another session on IELTS training. We'll be looking still at part one. I want to cover a little bit more of part one today, and then later on we'll be looking, well, next time we'll be looking at part two and then part three and how to do the best in those. But we're starting off, let's get our grounding right. So start off with IELTS part one. So describing things and giving information, very important when you're doing your IELTS part one. This is generally the sort of questions that you'll be getting. So you might be asked to describe, for instance, and there's many different topics, but let's look at a few. So you might be asked to talk about your family, about your home, about your neighborhood, your hometown, your school or your studies, your job or your hobbies. So that's a range of things that you might be asked about in part one. There's many others, the weather, travel, all sorts of things where you can get fairly relatively short answers, not long, complicated answers. It's really what you're looking for. As I said before, in part one, you're not going to get a grade 8 or 7 in part one. That's not going to happen. It's really to establish the grounding and make sure that you're a grade 3, grade 4, or possibly edging on a grade 5, just to get things kicked off before the examiner will go into part two, where you have an opportunity to really show off your skills, your English skills, and part three, where you'll be asked questions, and that will show really the depth of your English skills. It will then differentiate those that are maybe a 7 or an 8. So let's say, this isn't how it works, but let's say part one takes you up to about 5. Part two is sort of the 5 to 6 type grading, and part three will take you beyond that. So being able to handle those questions, those more difficult questions, understand the questions and answer them on the spot, will really show that you have a higher level of English. So carrying on with part one, here's some general tips for part one. There's some do's and don'ts. Most of these are do's, but there's a couple of don'ts. So firstly, listen carefully to the question. Is that a do or a don't? Of course, that's a do. You must listen carefully. Okay, so listen carefully to the question. An obvious do. So this is one of the most important things in part one, is to listen to what the examiner's saying. I've been an examiner before, and one of the painful experiences is when you ask a fairly simple question and the applicant starts talking about something completely different to what you've asked. It's an uncomfortable moment when you have to tell them that's not what the question was, and bring them back into or reiterate, say again what the question was, so that they will understand. So be very careful to listen to what the examiner is asking you. Don't assume that you know what he's going to say. He or she, sorry, I'm saying he, should be he or she is going to say. They might start talking about the family and then ask a different question to the one that you were thinking. So not just a straight question about, tell me about your family. And if you don't listen, you could be wandering off on the wrong topic. So do listen very carefully. The next one, extend your answers forever. I hope you realize that this one's a don't. So don't go on and on and on and on. And again, I've experienced that. Another quite frustrating thing for an examiner when someone just keeps going on about the same topic. We're not really growing, we're not going anywhere, saying the same simple type sentences. I mean, if you were talking in some depth, then that's okay, but if you're just going on and on at the same level, it's not achieving anything. So don't go on too long. And remember, part one is just the basic. It's just the starter to warm you up and to see whether you can converse in basic English. Next one, be honest. Do or don't. What do you think? Of course, it's a do. So do be honest. I will at some stage in the future be telling you about a little trick that you can use in part two. So I'll save that for then, which will sort of maybe contradict this a little bit, but it's very specialized and that is just for that point. So generally, 100% be honest. And I know I'm a Christian and a pastor, I shouldn't tell anyone ever to lie. So you should always be honest. If you're not honest, the examiner will know. Okay, so you'll tie yourself up in knots, and you'll end up not being able to say or not saying what you want to say. So being honest is always a good thing. The other thing about being honest is that it allows your body language to come into play. So you'll smile more when you're being honest. You'll maybe use some body language, some hand gestures. I always recommend good body language. So when you first come in and meet the examiner, smile, shake their hands or whatever. In COVID, maybe you won't be able to do that. Maybe you can just offer them your elbow like they do. But smile, good eye contact. So good eye contact shows that you're confident. So if when the examiner looks at you, you meet them with your eye contact and then don't look away straight away. Keep that eye contact, and it really shows that you're confident about what you're doing. And it's amazing how psychology works in things. If someone thinks you're confident, then they'll have a more positive outlook on what you're doing. And so they're more likely to think very positive about what you're saying. So being honest is an important way of achieving good body language. Important to be honest. And at the end of the day, what you've got to remember is that examiner has sat there for hours listening to one after the other of people trying to give the same sort of answers, going through the same questions. The examiner's probably pretty bored by the time you come in. And so when the examiner meets someone who is confident, who's smiling, maybe even having a little laugh, it brightens their day. We're all human. The examiner is human. And honesty and friendliness and a nice approach goes a long way. And when they then think back about what mark shall I give that person, if you've given a really positive approach, then honestly, you're more likely to get, instead of maybe if they're thinking of 5.5 or a 6, they'll go for the 6 because they liked you and you've given them that positivity, which goes towards them giving you the higher grade. So always important to be positive, always important to be honest. I think we talk about positivity later on in a minute, so I've probably stolen my own thunder there. So yeah, there's a good phrase for you: to steal someone's thunder. That is, so if someone is going to say something and you say it first, everyone laughs, you've stolen their thunder. Okay. So next one, let your examiner interrupt you. Yes, 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 do. So if your examiner starts to interrupt you, there's a reason. Maybe that you've done number 2, which you've extended your answers forever, and they're bored to tears. They don't want to listen about that anymore. They want to move on. So don't just carry on talking over them, because that will annoy them. You've said enough. You're not going to get any more marks on that bit. They want to move on. So let the examiner talk over you. It may also be, number 1, listen carefully to the questions. Maybe you didn't listen to the question and the examiner's just been polite, let you go on, and wants to bring you back to the real question. So do let the examiner interrupt you. Next one, give reasons for your answers. Do give reasons for your answers. Remember, in the last episode I said very simple word that you can use is because. So I like this, blah, 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 because. And that allows you to expand on what you're saying, to give what's called a complex sentence. Okay? So you might remember the word subordinating conjunction from last time. So there's lots of subordinating conjunctions you can use. I'm sure I'll go through a list in a future episode. But they will help you extend your answers and just add marks to your score, rather than just saying, someone says, tell me about the town you live. Well, I live in Stevenage. It's a nice town. Stop. That's no good. You need to say, I live in Stevenage. It's a nice town because, well, that's quite difficult for me because Stevenage is so-so. Let's say if I was saying I live in Davao. It's a nice town because it's very close to the sea. It's very beautiful. It has lots of lovely shopping malls. The weather's lovely. You could think of lots of reasons why you want to live in Davao. No, Stevenage is okay. I'm just being horrible. But by saying because, you're extending your answer, gaining more points. Okay, so the next one is stay on topic. I think I just mentioned that. I alluded to that in my last answer. You allude to something. You sort of mention it. You don't go into full detail, but you mention it. That is alluding to something. And those sort of words are grade 7, grade 8. Okay, so I'm talking about the very beginning, but there's a few words in here that are very useful for higher scores. So stay on topic. The examiner will think, if you go off topic, the examiner will think that you didn't understand the question. So make sure you do stay on topic and talk about what you've been asked. It might be boring, it might not be what you've prepared or what you want to talk about, but you need to stay on topic. It's very important. Okay, next one. Remain upbeat and positive. I think I more than alluded to that one in my previous answers. But it is very important to be cheerful, be happy, be positive. You know that. I mean, if you're listening to me and I'm going, okay, and the next question, the next answer, remain upbeat and positive. You must be upbeat and positive. Very soon, you're going to get very bored and turn off. Well, you may have already turned off anyway. I hope you haven't. Please stay. But your attitude will affect the whole interview, and it will affect the mood of the examiner. You know, as I said, they've sat there all day. They may have listened to 100 different interviews, all on the same topic. So smile, laugh, be positive. You know, you can ask the interviewer some questions even. You know, don't start questioning the interviewer, but you know, you can say something. Oh, where are you from? That's you know, that's nothing wrong with that. That shows that you're confident and you're nice, polite, and you know, it's a good thing to do. Just to interact. It's a person. You know, someone who's getting paid to sit there and listen to your answers. They sit there day after day after day. I've done it, honestly. I've sat and I've listened to people's answers, and some of them, you can get people that are very good answers using some, you know, really good words, but they're so boring. So when you come to mark them, yeah, you don't think in a positive way. You're thinking in a bit of a negative way. Cheer your examiner up, you know. Just